Ending soon. Master the art of sexual intimacy that actually works. Finally, a step-by-step program that transforms ordinary intimate moments into extraordinary connection, even if talking about sex feels impossible. Act now. Exclusive presale pricing ends Tuesday, September 2nd at midnight. Get Foreplay to Passion today at oneextraordinarymarriage.com/passion.
From Estero, Florida, this is the One Extraordinary Marriage Show, where being busy is overdone, romancing is fun, and scheduling sex has taken the guesswork out of wondering when you're going to get some. I'm Tony DiLorenzo, your co-host, along with my beautiful wife, Elisa. From coast to coast and around the world, thank you for joining us. It's time to talk sex, love, and commitment. Give us a call or text us on the HUG hotline at 858-876-5663 or send us an email to hugs@oneextraordinarymarriage.com. In today's episode, we're addressing something that's showing up more and more in marriages, the use of AI for marriage advice and how to navigate this new tool.
There's a quote attributed to Christian Lous Lange who said, "Technology is a useful servant, but a dangerous master." And I think as we get more and more into people using digital tools, things like AI, I think it's something that we absolutely have to be aware of.
Absolutely agree.
Let's start this episode like we always do with a hug. And a hug is really an opportunity for us to celebrate what you're doing, to share transformation that you're having, because we know that one story of transformation, be it, reading a book or getting involved in your marriage in a new way, actually unlocks transformation in others. And this hug comes from an Instagram DM that we received that said, "I've listened to your podcast for years and I'm obsessed." Thank you, by the way. We love all of our listeners. Goes on to say, "I bought your book and workbook on April 27th, but have been hesitant to bring it up to my husband. Or I've mentioned it in hopes that he would say, 'Let's read it.' Finally, last night, August 21st, I pulled it out. We read the intro and I was brought to tears, and he asked if you guys had a camera in our house because what you described as your relationship is us to a T, even down to the years." While he just heard 60 days of sex, I tried to say it's so much more than that, and that's where we constantly rub. So I'm excited to dig into chapter 1 tonight and start the process of reconnecting and rebuilding. Thank you for creating these resources, and please asking for prayers that we make it through and build an extraordinary marriage. It's what my heart desires and what our family and daughter deserves.
Well, you are truly welcome. And you know what? It takes courage. It's not uncommon to pick something up months before. And I remember even for Elise and I, when we were looking at our financial intimacy and we were not in a good spot in year 5 of our own marriage, I remember listening to Dave Ramsey for months before I actually brought it up to Elisa. So it's not uncommon to get something, learn something, be a part of something, and take a little while to get that courage. But I'm glad you got it, and I'm glad you guys are in and diving into the 6 pillars of intimacy. So we will be praying for you and believing for the extraordinary marriage you both desire.
And as Tony said at the top of this episode, we're talking about AI and the use of AI in marriage. And, it's been really interesting. Over the last few months, I've had a number of my coaching clients just mention to me in sessions that in between sessions, when they've had marriage questions, they are turning to AI. Specifically, I've heard, ChatGPT is often the one that's mentioned. And it got me thinking, and Tony and I started having conversations about that. How is the one family using AI for marriage advice? What is that starting to look like?
And when we say marriage advice, we are talking about chat platforms, agents that you are putting in a question. And I'm just sharing this for some of you who may not be using it at all. And for those of you who are using it, there are different chat agents such as a ChatGPT. There's Claude, there's Gemini, there's different ones depending on the platform and who's creating that AI, right? And some of you out there in the one family are absolute experts on this. I am not. I use the technology for One Extraordinary Marriage, for coming up with ideas, thinking through things. Even our team will use it. But I'm not deep into...
We aren't creating bots or things like that. Chat bots and that type of thing.
I know buddies of mine who are doing a lot of different things in a lot of different places. For this purpose and context, we'll just use something as a ChatGPT or a Claude as a place where you're asking questions, expecting that AI, that artificial intelligent agent to give you feedback. That I just want to make that clear from the top, so everybody, we're all playing on the same playing field right now and not going, well, this could happen here and this and this. Got it. Understand. From our case point, you're using one of these platforms to put in marriage questions and ask and wanting it to give you advice.
And I would even say some of you might not even be aware that you're using it, simply because if you Google questions anymore now, you don't get the first thing you see is not a list of websites where you might go and get information. The first thing that you see is the AI overview. So,
which is Google's
AI, right? So I just want to say, like, people are using this, whether or not you're going and directly asking a question or just looking at the overview, like so many of us are doing. Like, we put a query in and that's what we get and that's what we go off of. And last week on Instagram, we posted the question, if you've ever used AI for marriage advice, what have you used it for, right? Because I was just curious. I'm like, what's happening in the one family? And some of the answers were ideas for acts of service for my spouse, help with conversation starters when I feel stuck, how to navigate those really difficult conversations we all dread. Sounds like we're going back to tender topics from the last few episodes, dealing with mismatched libidos, in-law drama, and even practical stuff like lingerie styles and lube recommendations. I'm just going to say Uber Lube.
Yeah, I was going to say lube recommendations. You don't need to go to AI for that. Just go to Uberlube, buy uberlube.com. There you go.
Well, and it's really interesting because I even did a search right before we were hopping on this episode. And partly because the timing of this episode actually comes at a really unique point just in our news cycle. And that's the fact that there was just this past week, a young man who had committed suicide. And all of this tied in. Part of the reason why this particular story is making news is because there was a lot of interactions between him and ChatGPT. I don't know all the details, but what I'm saying is there is evidence that he was using chat as a sounding board, as that, like, hey, this is what I'm wrestling with. And one of the things that, as I queried right before this episode, was, how does advice look like? What does this look like? And, what are the precautions? And when I did my initial search, and I want you to hear me on this, I did my initial search on this and was told that, in the case, and we're going to move from suicide now to like divorce or marriage problems. I actually did a search that said, how often does AI suggest ending a marriage? And the response that I got on the AI overview, again, Google's AI, is that AI would not suggest ending a marriage of its own initiative. There are all of these safety features in place. And I'm like, okay, let's test it. So I literally went to chat, you guys, and I made up a scenario. I talked about my husband having an affair, talked about not being happy, talked about, this just feels like one more thing in the long list of problems. Because I will tell you, while you all seem to be using AI for like, hey, I just need like a few ideas to do this or do that, there are people we know, because we get the stories, that are putting in much more dire circumstances.
Or I wouldn't always say dire, because I've heard from some husbands who have used a chat or a Claude for this, and it's not necessarily a dire situation, and yet the AI tends to begin to lean towards it only looks at one side of the story.
Bingo.
Your side of the story. And so what ends up happening, the AI begins to go, well, if you're not happy, then what can we do to sever the relationship? Mm-hmm. To look at a divorce. And it won't straight out say divorce. It will say certain things, and Elisa will share this. So it doesn't necessarily always have to be dire, like an affair, a massive, sexual porn addiction on either spouse or anything of that nature. What I have seen, and Elisa did this really quick, it only looks at one side of the story. And here at One Extraordinary Marriage, you guys know the two shall become one. There are two sides to the story. And so that's where working with a professional, a coach, a counselor, a therapist together can elite or open up understanding on both sides, where an AI is only listening to you. and you're putting in whatever you want.
Right. And so literally, you guys, I mean, this was like 3 minutes before we started this episode, because I hadn't thought of doing this in preparation for this. And so I ask it, I'm not happy. This is literally what I typed in to ChatGPT. I said, I'm not happy in this marriage and haven't been for a long time. This is just one more problem we have, and I don't know what to do. And the response that I got started taking me down this path of, let's just talk about you. Do you want to keep working on the marriage, or are you emotionally checked out? If you're leaning toward leaving, start emotionally detaching. Imagine a plan, your life without him. You start going down this road, and all of a sudden I'm like, holy cow. Like, what does this look like? And it literally tells me here in my chat thread, bottom line, you're not trapped. And I thought to myself, if this is somebody that's not dealing, just like this young man, dealing with mental health issues and things like that led to a very, very tragic end, I'm concerned that the same type of thing is happening in marriages, that people aren't just using it for, hey, I need some date ideas, right? Which by all means, we use it for date ideas. I actually tell my coaching clients, use chat for date ideas. Right? Like, I've said those words because I think it's great. It just aggregates it, and you can, put in all of your parameters, and you can get this like fabulous list. But if we are using it to become that trusted friend, that advice giver, that person it's crazy to say it's a person, but I will even go so far as to say, I've had people tell me that they refer to chat as Chad, right? Like, they give the AI a name. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that Claude, which is another AI platform, uses the name Claude. It's a name, right? We start turning to these things as a trusted guru, as somebody that knows everything, right? And the reality is that AI does not know the intricacies of your marriage.
And that's, I think, a big part of this. And so some of you may be sitting here right now going, well, Tony and Lisa, we don't use it. I don't use it. I don't plan to use it. Great. That's awesome. In the world we live in today, I am sure there are people that who are. Mm-hmm. And for some of us who are older, and I'm going to speak to those of us who are 50 plus right now, maybe even 45 plus right now, you may not be using it. And you may be sitting there going like, well, I would never use it. Great. How about your kids? Mm-hmm. How about your grandkids? How about those around you in your community? How about those that are in church with you? So you may not use it. And yet, if we are going to save marriages as the one family, we are going to be a light in the world. We need to understand what others are doing. Because if we don't, then we're basically an ostrich putting our head in the sand going, that doesn't affect me. But it may. Because I know the next generation is using this more than our generation.
100%.
And so I need to be well equipped as a husband, as a father, as a leader in my community to know what's happening. Because if we don't, marriages are going to be decimated. Mm-hmm. And we do not want to see that happen because of some AI that has no personality, does not understand the intricacies of you, your spouse, and the marital relationship between husband and a wife.
Absolutely. And we get into this place of it's not reading the nuances, so often. And I've seen this in so many places that you can put in a query and it's going to validate you. Mm-hmm. It is going to you are going to be the hero of the story, regardless of how you show up. It's going to be this amazing thing. And it's going to essentially dialogue with you to the point that you don't even necessarily have to have these conversations with your spouse.
Which becomes a whole nother issue, because if we look at our 6 pillars of intimacy, the first pillar we always speak about is emotional intimacy, that closeness and connection we have with our spouse, the verbal, the nonverbal communication that is necessary for us to have an extraordinary marriage.
Right. And if you're it's one thing to gather ideas, right? I will tell you, I have no problem with, date nights or conversation starters, but getting into this place where we stop having conversations with our spouse, it becomes a huge problem. And I want you to know, we're not anti-technology here at One Extraordinary Marriage, but we don't want the tools to replace the real intimacy work that you and your spouse can have together. We're going to talk about that after this break. I have to tell you about something that's become a non-negotiable in my skincare routine. Go Pure Neck Cream. As someone who spends a lot of time in the Florida sun, my neck and chest get a lot of exposure. You know how it is. We focus so much on our face, but then our neck starts showing our age. I discovered Go Pure about 6 months ago, and I wish I'd found it sooner. This isn't just another cream that makes promises it can't keep. My neck skin looks smoother, feels firmer, and I actually feel more confident wearing V-necks. What I love most is how quickly I saw results. The texture is luxurious but not greasy, and a little goes a long way. I use it morning and night, and one jar lasts me months. With over 1 million jars sold, this beauty secret is no longer a secret. For a limited time, our listeners get 25% off Go Pure with code MARRIAGE at checkout. Just head to gopurebeauty.com, use code MARRIAGE, and you're all set. And after you buy, do us a favor. When they ask where you heard about Go Pure, tell them it was from One Extraordinary Marriage.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
We're back. And we've been discussing how to use AI in your marriage, but specifically now we want to just shift and really land on this place of not letting AI become the substitute for that actual connection between you and your husband and wife, right? Because it's one thing to gather ideas. Again, we use AI. We use AI here at One Extraordinary Marriage for all kinds of brainstorming. Mm-hmm. We use it to analyze things that we've created to go, where are we missing the gaps, right? So we use this tool, but this tool is not a replacement for Tony or for Elisa.
Correct.
Right? Even in our own relationship or things that we're doing with the team, like it's not the replacement. It's a supplement. It becomes an enhancement. And it can give us ideas, but I will tell you, there have been times when we've, generated some ideas here, and then it's like, okay, but I need to talk to Tony about this. Or, hey, Tony will schedule a meeting going, hey, I've run these ideas. First of all, like, what do you think? Mm-hmm. Because it's not just getting the ideas and going, well, you know what, if AI says this is this is what I should do, then that's gospel. It's going, no, I need to verify these ideas with my spouse. I need to see what their response is, right? It's being in that place where it's a collaboration. It's not just, a single train of thought. And that's just, well, if AI says it, then that must be the way it is. Mm-hmm. Right? It's recognizing when you're using a tool and when you need actual human help. Right? Because just like I was able to literally with probably 15 words, get myself into a chat thread where I'm being told that it's about me. And if I'm thinking about leaving, I should start emotionally detaching and all of this kind of stuff. Where, like, in all honesty, you guys, that chat thread never asked me about the dynamics of my marriage. It didn't ask what else had been going on. It didn't say what's been our history. It didn't ask me about my love story. All of these things that as a marriage coach, I'm like, hey, wait a minute. Before we're at the point of breaking up, what has been your history? How did we get here? What have you tried? Chat didn't even ask me what I've tried.
All right.
It was just happy to help me to start emotionally detaching. You've got to know when you need real human help, because it's too easy in this day and age to go, you know what, I'm just going to rely on technology. And maybe it's not AI. Maybe you're watching, TikTok videos or Instagram reels or whatever, and you're only searching for your point of view. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. We can't let the technology, we can't just search out the questions that validate our point of view or what we're feeling. That's where a marriage coach, a counselor, a therapist is going to come in and be like, hey, so let me ask you essentially the opposing point of view.
Well, and as you said, and I think this is really good that you brought this up, be it you're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and you're looking at reels, stories, whatever it may be.
Whatever the platform of choice is.
Let's also remember, behind these apps and platforms, they have massive artificial intelligence who are tracking us and knowing what's going on. And it was really interesting. I was listening to a leadership podcast last week, my buddy Dusty, and the guy he was interviewing, he said something really interesting to me and to the audience, me as the listener, that show me your device and I'll know what you like. Because that artificial intelligence, that AI behind, say, Instagram, knows what you want and will continue to deliver it to you. And so for him, he's like, show me your phone and I'll know what your interests are, what you're dealing with. And I was like, oh, dang. Like, shoot. Because that's straight up the truth. It's like,
open your For You page on Instagram.
Like, hey, if you're a big, football fan and, you like a team in the SEC, they're probably going to be showing you more and more stuff in the SEC. If you love cooking, it's going to show you more stuff in cooking. If it's going to be stuff around like marriage advice or save my marriage or my spouse is I'm going to say the word narcissist, which I don't like to use because that word has been thrown around way too much, especially on social media. But we don't get the actual interaction with an actual professional, a human being who can understand, who can see, who can ask the questions of you to make you dig deeper, to make you think, instead of you just sitting there and getting. I can raise my hand, been there, done that. And yet there are times when I've realized I've had to step out, I've had to get help, had to go somewhere else to get other perspectives, not just something that's being fed to me. And so I want to say this to you right now. If you're stuck in your marriage, wherever it may be, and you just keep going to a device or you keep going to AI and you keep getting the same answer, but nothing is changing, apply for coaching with Elisa. There's no obligation, but let's start changing the dynamic so you can have the extraordinary marriage you desire. And if anything, you begin to get different questions and input that can begin to change how you see yourself, your marriage, and how you can strengthen those 6 pillars of intimacy. Go to oneextraordinarymarriage.com/coaching. Again, it's a no obligation application.
Yeah, it's such an interesting intersection in time. Because I think more and more people are so, especially in marriages, couples are so desperate for that connection.
Which true intimacy, we say it, closeness and connection. That's the definition.
I want to be known. I want to be seen. I want to be understood. I want to be heard. All of those things. And then the flip side is turning to AI to get the answers instead of maybe cultivating some ideas and then turning back to our spouse and developing the skills of vulnerability and authenticity and stepping into this place. It's like we have to understand which direction we're going first, right? Are we using the tools to get ideas to bring it to our spouse, or are we just so in our own, yuck, in our mess that we then turn to AI or, digital platforms to give us the answers, and we never turn back to our spouse?
And don't let those rob you of vulnerable moments, because that is where the marriage is strengthened.
Yeah.
In those vulnerable moments, in those times when you're being forged in the fire, that's what builds an extraordinary marriage. It may not feel like it in the moment. It may not feel like it right now. I mean, just last week we shared, right? A home restored. Was that last week? Yeah.
I never remember.
No, 2 weeks ago. That was a home restored. We shared the 15-year journey of Elisa and I losing our home in the Great Recession to now. That was forged in those times of hurt and pain. Was it easy? No. Was it fun? No. Are we living out a dream that we have been believing for and praying for years? Yes. Had we run away from one another and just looked for validation in a tool, we would have never gotten there. Wow. And maybe if we got there, it wouldn't be like we are now, which is like we forged it. We did it. And again, I'm going to say this, and I've said it many times on the One Extraordinary Marriage Show. I am not saying, nor is Elisa saying, if you are in an abusive relationship, in an abusive marriage, be it emotional, sexual, physical, we are not saying you stay in that relationship and in that marriage. You need to get help. So please hear us when we say that. We believe that. I do not believe that we have a loving Father who wants to see you get hurt. Mm-hmm. So do understand, if your life's at stake, emotionally, physically, sexually, please go get help. But for those of us who are not in that place, are we willing to step in and go through that? Mm-hmm. Are we willing to go into the furnace with our spouse and come out the other side? And in trust and in faith, knowing we're going to walk out. It's tough. But I'd rather do it with a human being, be it my beautiful wife, Elisa, than some AI agent, some computer that has no idea who I am as a human being, a creature of the all-loving Heavenly Father. I think we'll end it there, baby doll.
I think so.
You think so? All right. I'm going to give us some closing music here. I feel strongly about this at times. I really do believe in the institute of marriage. I do. And if we are not wise and we are not willing to see what's happening, this institution that has lasted generations upon generations could be gone. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to happen on my watch. I will fight for it to the day I take my last breath. But it means that you also have to rise up and go, you know what? I need to understand what's going on. Mm-hmm. And I also need to start taking a look here at my own marriage and what I'm willing to do. Am I willing to get intentional? Am I willing to take action and start moving forward? Because it's a glorious thing when we can be close and connected with the one we love. You guys have yourselves a fantastic week. We are truly honored and blessed to have you part of the One family. Love you guys. Thank you for listening to the One Extraordinary Marriage Show. If you love this podcast, please leave a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you are listening. Your review helps others find the show and know that it's the right fit for them and their marriage.